Bless FM, I no cigarette smoking in my room. I still want Marley. Bless FM radio, play good tune.
Good evening, listeners. This is Tuesday evening after 6 p.m. and this is Brother Sard, and it's the spiritual discussion program. And hopefully I've got my colleagues with me. Brother Gregory, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here in Brussels.
Well done. Welcome to the show. And Brother Femi, are you there?
Yes, good evening. Calling in from London town.
London town, very good. And Brother William, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, Brother Sard and viewers, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for that. And Brother Rainer is away for the next 2 weeks, so we're going to miss him, but he'll be back after that. So, dear listeners, this is the spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the work In the Light of Truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin, and which is a spiritual knowledge of life. And we always have a topic, new topic for every week, and the topic for tonight is duty and loyalty. In fact, this topic we've had it about a year or so more ago, but we thought we'd have it again. We got new people on the show, so it'd be nice to discuss with them as well. So yes, dear listeners, if you want to join us in the discussion, the number to contact us here in the studio, it is 079 444 31366. That's you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're contacting us from outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. And just to say, I'm Brother Sard. I'm in London in the studio. The weather's so lovely here, really hot. We've had 30 degrees or around 30 degrees in London for more than a week now, and it's going to continue the next couple of weeks apparently. So we're looking forward to that. I'm just going to go to my colleagues as well just to check how the weather is where they are. So Brother Gregory, I know you're in Brussels. How's the weather where you are, Brother Gregory, please?
Similar to what you have in London.
Okay.
Heavy rain, actually, with thunderstorms.
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to happen at the end after when we have had such hot weather. So that may make sense. So yes, thank you for that. So, dear listeners, I'm going to start with what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with the matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. And I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you another quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for tonight is duty and loyalty. And I'm sure we all experience having duties and have conflict sometimes about being loyal to our duty. So we're going to discuss that tonight, and obviously we'd love you to join us for with any questions or comments that you might have. The number to contact us here in the studio in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. That's for the UK number. If you're contacting us from outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. I'm going to start with Brother Gregory for my first question. Brother Gregory, how can we be dutiful? Yes, so the topic is duty and loyalty. And yeah, if you can help us with that question of how can we be dutiful?
Well, the question which I repeat is how can one...
Oh, Brother Gregory?
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah.
There's a bit of crackling in the background.
That's a bit surprising.
Okay. Just carry on a little bit.
The question, like Harry said, is how can one be dutiful?
Yes, that's clear now.
Okay. Well, first, duty. The word duty only means a set of tasks which needs to be carried out. Because one has subscribed to those tasks. However, the subscriptions to these type of tasks must have arisen when one has examined these tasks which needs to be done through first his or her intuition, and it's only the fulfillment of this task one may refer to as one's duty. If, however, in the process of examination, it finds that these tasks are not in agreement with one's intuition or generally with the laws through which the personality came into existence, then such tasks may be turned aside and will not be fulfilled. So, as with everything, each person first must examine their duty and ensure that they understand or swing intuitively with it. Then the fulfillment of this duty becomes a matter of course and will be filled with joy.
Thank you. You mentioned, Brother Gregory, about intuition there, and would you say that is like listening to your heart when you say using your intuition, that something you swing with you, that you yourself feel happy in your heart? Would it be something like this, to do that?
Those are partial expressions or part expressions to say one feels happy in one's heart. But again, those are things which need to be examined very carefully, because there may be some things which may not, at the initial stage, swing with their perception then. But on calmer reflection, one will then discover that yes, it swings. Yeah, but intuition more or less presents or expresses itself in a form of picture, or a picture without words. And most of the time, if one is silent within oneself in one's reflection, many a path to the fulfillment of a particular task might have been shown to one even before that task arises. So it's a matter of calm reflections and be open. Not just open, but to be open to guidance. The guidance itself that keeps creation, the guidance itself that permitted it, the personality here to be on earth.
Thank you. I'm going to move to Brother William now. Brother William, why would you
yes.
Yes, thank you, Brother William. Yes, I just want to ask you about why is duty so important? It's like something ingrained in us, you know. When you listen to that word duty, automatically you sense, oh, you know, you have to do it. And so why is that? Why do we feel that is so important? And yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for this question, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again. This is a very important topic, duty and loyalty, and like you just said, like your question just mentioned, that there is something that is striking about duty, or to completed fulfillment of duty. And so when we look at fulfillment of duty, it is basically a virtue. It is a virtue. So it's a very, very important thing that is striking. And virtues are things that are of a spiritual purport, you know, as they originate in the spirit. Now, before we go into exploring further what duty really means, and just to throw a little more light on this subject matter, I think it is very, very important for us to first of all address a fundamental issue here. Now, many years ago, some people may be aware of the terminology "know thyself." You know, in the temple of Apollo at Delphi, it bore this inscription, "Know thyself." And what does it mean to know thyself? It means to strive to recognize your nature, to strive to recognize your origin, you know, to strive to understand what abilities that you've been endowed with, you know, and also importantly, to understand your faults and weaknesses. So it's very important for us to be able to address this before we proceed in examining this subject matter in more detail. So to know thyself, who am I? We are essentially spiritual beings. We're essentially human spirits who happen to be having an earthly experience. So this is not our home, definitely not our home. And we journeyed, like we've mentioned in previous shows, eons ago, from the spiritual realm or the paradise of the human spirit as spirit germs, you know, with the view to becoming fully conscious personalities. Now, if we think about a seed grain or something like that on earth, we are aware that a certain soil provides the right atmosphere, or provides the right, as it were, well, the right nourishment and everything for that particular seed germ or plant to grow, to mature, you know, and to bear fruit. So just the same way as here in material creation or earth, we are, through the various coverings that we've had to pick up on our way down here, the coarseness of the experiences and the radiation and all the processes here, it gives that impetus for the unconscious spirit germ to awaken, and develop to consciousness. So we're here to develop, we're here to mature, we're here to experience, creation. So if we bear that in mind, in terms of knowing who we are, then we think about where we've come from, and so for whatever we are doing here on earth, that has to be very, very, it has to be paramount that we are here, and there's a spiritual purpose to our existence here on earth, and when we have that in mind, then these abilities, what are these abilities that we have? What are our capabilities? Because if we don't know our capabilities and the abilities of the spirit, of who we are, then how can we perform our duties meaningfully? You see what I'm trying to say? Yes. So it's very important for us to go back to the basics and then, build up from there. So we now understand that we're here for a purpose, to mature and experience. Okay? Then the question now has to be that we haven't just found ourselves here, that we are creatures in creation, and have been created by the Almighty, by God, and so we've also been created out of His will. So it's very, very important. We've also been created out of His will, and it is through the grace and love of the Almighty that we've been able to sojourn here, or sojourn in creation, to attain that maturity. So it's out of His love, out of His grace. So when we talk about duty and fulfillment of a duty, which is a virtue, I want us to try and understand it within three broad categories. First of all, what is our duty towards the Creator? What is our duty towards the Almighty, who has made this place available for our development? What is our duty towards our fellow man, our fellow travelers? And then what is our duty towards nature, towards the plants and animals? So if we try to understand it broadly in these three categories in which I've put forward, then it makes understanding easier. So what is our duty towards the Creator? What is our duty towards the Creator who has made this place available? Now, if you think about the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, that the Creator has endowed us with abilities, talents, it is your duty towards the Creator to develop those talents and abilities which lie latent inside you and put them to right use or proper use. Very, very importantly. So you must know them. What are these abilities? And then when you know them, then you put them to the right use. And that is the duty. Then, the duty towards the Creator also, He's made somewhere available for us to learn. As creatures, it is important and it's a duty for us to understand creation, to understand His language, because He speaks to us through creation. Creation is His language.
Thank you, Brother William. You really have opened this.
Which are a manifestation.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you'd finished. So please continue.
Yeah. And understand His will. So it is a duty that we have towards the Creator. And then, of course, in fulfilling our duties towards the Creator, it takes us through our duty towards our fellow man. But what I would do is I would just try and shorten it and then towards plan, because I don't want to go too far. But this is from my own current understanding of the approach: duty towards the Creator, duty towards our fellow man, and of course duty towards nature. But we must bear in mind that when we talk about fulfillment of duty, like my esteemed panelist mentioned, that it must be infused with spirit. And what does that mean? To be infused with intuition, to be infused with life itself, with intuition. And that's what gives it that life, and that's what gives it that purpose, that meaning, And without that spiritual infusion, without that conviction, then it's not really duty as it should be. So yes, I know you talked about the importance of duty and why it's so striking. It is, yes, and humanity has managed to maintain that importance in terms of the sense of duty and achieving duty. But what has happened is there's been a distortion of the concept of fulfillment of duty, which is a virtue. There's been a distortion, and the distortion has come about as a result, of isolating what actually makes it important in terms of duty, and that is the spiritual core, the true ego of man being involved, and so there's that conviction in whatever duty that one has to carry out. So let me stop there, because there's still a lot we can say about it, but I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother William. You really have expanded this topic, just opened up new avenues for us to go into. So thank you very much for that. And first of all, I could say that the word duty, it sounds, you definitely feel something there's significant in that word, and it sounds like a heavy thing that is a burden that you have to do. But the way, Brother William, you've sort of opened it up by calling it a duty to the Creator, to nature, and to others, you could just start seeing actually there can be something wonderful in it as well, and not such a burdensome thing as somebody might think that way, because that word it definitely has some trigger inside us to, oh, I'm doing a duty, it means I must do it. You can already feel that that's how it is, but then there's a benefit in it by doing that duty. So I'm going to move on to Brother Femi now. Brother Femi, I would like to follow on from what Brother William's been saying there. The different duties he mentioned: duty to the Creator, to nature, and to others. So, shall we start with the Creator, Brother Femi? What's the duty? If you can just answer all of them, but let's talk about the Creator. What is our duty to our Creator? That's to Brother Femi.
Thank you for the very significant question. The title of today is duty and loyalty, and so we will most certainly continue to explore that over the next hour or so. But it is absolutely critical that the listeners have a better understanding of the differentiation between duty and loyalty, and to briefly put it into context. Of course, like I said, we will be exploring this in more detail as we go through. Duty is that which we feel bound to do, not necessarily because we want to do it, but because we must do it. I have to go to work every morning. I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to make sure that I'm at work on time. I may actually hate the job that I do, but I have a duty to be there on time because I recognize the consequences of not being there on time. And I don't want to suffer those consequences. And then there is loyalty. The key difference, I guess, when we look at loyalty is the desire to want to do that thing. So I have an inspirational manager who I respect tremendously, who I learn so much from. And so every morning when I wake up, I'm actually looking forward to going to work, because deep within my soul, that is what I want to do. Again, there are benefits that I derive from doing that which I'm doing. And so there is a certain sense of loyalty that I have to carrying out my work, to carrying out my duty, so to speak. So when we talk about what duty does a human being have in relation to his creator, this is something very deep. For starters, most humans, especially us Christians, are of the view that we just need to pray, we just need to ask for forgiveness, and we just need to believe in Jesus Christ, and all is resolved, all is fine. It's almost as if the Godhead, our creator, has been turned into our personal slave. And so whenever we want something, whenever we need help, we know where to run to. We pray, we request, we petition. However, the fact that any relationship, doesn't really matter what type of relationship it is a two-way traffic. It's almost as if it is convenient for us to forget that. So we want, we demand, we ask, but how many of us really wonder about what is it that we need to give back to our Creator in return for all the joys and the beauties and the wonder of being alive that we experience on a daily basis? And so, do we have a duty to the Creator? You can be 101% sure that we do. So what is this primary duty that we have to our Creator? In a nutshell, one can say that the duty we have is to keep His creation noble, to work tirelessly in uplifting His creation, in contributing to the ongoing ennoblement, and in the process, we personally benefit. So I will repeat that. What duty do we have to God? The fundamental duty that we have to Him is in His creation, which He has made over to us for our benefit, that we ennoble it. We ennoble it through our thoughts, through our words, through the actions that we engage in. From the small activity of waking up in the morning, tidying my room, making sure that it's decent and it looks right, to the bigger things of standing with integrity in my interactions with others, to being a member of a family where I actually work hard at improving the moral standing and the moral understanding of my family members, and so on and so forth. So the primary duty is ennobling creation, and that is an all-encompassing act. We've talked about the laws of life over a number of presentations on this radio station. And so, for the individual who is able to truly stand in the fulfillment of that duty, of that fundamental duty, I think the benefits and the short and longer term gains that such a person will derive becomes obvious. In fact, the truth be said, for a human being who is truly committed, who becomes totally loyal to the fulfillment of that duty, you will actually get to a state where there will be no longer a need for you to petition for anything. because you become fully aware and fully conscious that in your standing, in your activity, before you even ask for it, life offers it to you. And even that which we have a tendency to look on as being an unfortunate event, an unpleasant event that we go through, you will come to a state where you would actually recognize that embedded in that which is deemed to be unpleasant is actually a much greater benefit to the individual, which would most likely not come about if you did not experience that which you thought was a negative, and so on. I can go on and on about this particular question, but the key thing, just to summarize, duty to our Creator. Every being, whether it be a human being, whether it be a non-human being, every entity that has been created in creation has a duty to its Creator. It is fundamental that we make the effort to recognize and understand how to fulfill that duty. And I have essentially summarized in simple words that the key duty is to ennoble the Almighty's creation. And even the great teacher, the Son of the Almighty himself, Jesus Christ, who said, love your neighbor as yourself, which is one of the most important pillars that we can use to support our existence. Embedded in that is this concept of ennobling the creation that the Almighty Father has made available to us. I will stop at that for now.
Thank you so much, Brother Femi. It's really, how can I say, enlightening, this subject. You might not think at the beginning when we started talking that there will be so much in it, because deep duty, as I said, we start a duty thinking it's something heavy, burdensome, but actually it's for the benefit of everyone, and even when you think about a law, for example, that also, let's say on the earth, you think, oh, it's something I have to do, it's, you must just obey the law, and I don't really agree with it, and something like that. But again, here, of course, we're talking about God's laws here, or laws of nature, but when you look at them, you actually see, oh, actually it's a benefit for everyone. So thank you for highlighting that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program from 6 till 8, and the topic for tonight is duty and loyalty. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the work in the light, the spiritual work in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And you can join us with any questions or comments. You can call us, text us, or use WhatsApp. The number is for UK 079 444 313 66, and if you're outside of UK, it's 0044 79 444 313 66, and you can listen to us on blessradio.org, www.blessradio.org. Also, you can go to tunein.com, www.tunein.com, and search for Bless FM, and we are there. Also, we are on YouTube live streaming right now. You go to youtube.com and then search for Bless Radio 1 live stream, and then you can hear us. And after the show, about 10 minutes after the show, you can hear the recording. You just need to search again Bless Radio 1 and then type Brother Sard or Bro Sard and the Grail message, and the topic for tonight is duty and loyalty, and you'll get a recording of the show. Brother Gregory, I just want to ask you, brother, if you want to add something to what Brother Femi has said, because I asked him the question originally. We have three sort of questions: our duty to the Creator, duty to nature, and duty to others. And he answered the duty to Creator, and in a way he encompassed duty to nature and duty to others. But I just wondered, Brother Gregory, if you wanted to add anything further on that.
Well, one can always add things, and so it's an embellish. But simply put, there is just one duty that the human spirit has, and that duty has always remained the same. And it is to learn the language of the Lord, the language that the Creator has put in His creation. That is the primary task. That encompasses everything. As soon as man in his strivings understands the language of the Lord, which is the language of creation, then he himself becomes free, because he will understand how to adjust itself to whatever the returns or to the mechanisms that abound in creation. Then there will be no annoyance or fear, because in all certainty he or she knows that whatever comes its way is for its own blessing. Now you can understand many a time when one has to learn a new language, how difficult many find it. If, for instance, you have to study German, or if you have to study French or Chinese, at the initial stage, it takes off one's strength. But subsequently, as soon as you understand the language, then one is able to communicate. It's as if one is just reading a book and understand whatever streams towards the human spirit. It now knows how to adjust itself. That is the primary duty of the human spirit. That is the reason why we have to travel as unconscious spirit germs in order to learn and become conscious. Is simply to understand the language that creation speaks to us. And that language that creation speaks is the language of the Lord Almighty. That language which the will has placed in creation, which harmonizes with the love. So one should not see duties as compulsion, but you see duties as opportunities in learning that which is new. Even if during the period of learning we encounter challenges. It's like a farmer going to the farm to plant crops. Of course, at the initial stage, it sucks its strength. But when the farmer then reflects that in due course, it will have to reap what it has put into the soil, he or she is filled with happiness. So the only or the primary duty of the human spirit is to learn the language of the Lord Almighty.
Thank you so much, Brother Gregory. Brother William, I'm going to go to you now, and I'm going to change the focus this time. We've been, let's say, being very positive so far, but let's see when things start to go wrong. For example, let's say we human beings start to fail in our duty. What are the consequences of that if that happens? I mean, in a way, it might be a very obvious question because we can see it happening in the world today. But maybe we need if you could give us a broad picture of what are if we fail in our duty as a human being, what are the consequences of that?
Yes, thank you very much for this Also, very good follow-up question. You can now see why it was important for us to go back to the fundamental thing about duty and what it really relates to. And that is, again, to remind us that when we talk about fulfillment of duty, we're talking about it's addressing the very essence of who we are, that we're human spirits, we're spiritual beings, you see. So it's very, very important that when we understand that you cannot separate that intuitive striving, the inner voice, having conviction for what you're doing or trying to do, or what you consider as a task or duty. If it's not suffused with that intuition, then it's lifeless, And what is lifeless? What is lifeless cannot give you any lasting values. Yes, it might just be towards remuneration, quite all right, earthly remuneration. But in terms of benefits, what benefits does that fulfillment of duty offer you spiritually? And the question is, it doesn't. So when you again try to understand the classification that I tried to put forward earlier on, man's duty towards the Creator, your duty towards your fellow man, and your duty towards nature, the plants and animals. Now, one of the things we've been talking a lot about the laws. We've been talking about the laws in creation, and we must be mindful that wherever there is an effect, there is a cause, and whatever it is we do, or if there's a failure, to fulfill our duty, our various duties, there's a consequence to that, So, like I said, or like it has been discussed, we have a duty towards our Creator, who has made this place available to us. We have a duty, for instance, to beautify the environment. We have a duty to cultivate beauty in how we comport ourselves, beauty in how we present ourselves, beauty in our surroundings. So we must cultivate beauty. Because that beauty is inherent in the spirit. It's inherent in where we have originated from. So we must try to imbibe that in our activities. So we must cultivate beauty. That is a duty towards our Creator. Then, like I said, and I'm going to give one very interesting parable in the Bible. I don't know the verse, but it's the parable of talents. And it says that the master, who was about to travel, was going to give some of his servants, 3 of his servants, talents. And so to one of them, he gave 5 talents and said that these 3 servants will account for the talents he's giving them when he returns. So he gave the first one 5 talents. He gave the second one 2 talents. And he gave the other one 1 talent. And the one that had 5 talents put these 5 talents to use and was able to double them to 10. The one that had 2 talents put the talents to use and was able to double them to 4. Now the one that had 1 talent, for reasons best known to him, decided that he didn't want to jeopardize or put any of this talent. It was so precious that what he had to do was just bury it, and keep it in a way that nothing happens to it. So he buried this talent. And then when the master returned, he now asked all of them to account for all the talents. The one who had doubled his talents to 10 said, "Oh, well done." The one who had doubled the talents to 4 said, "Oh, very good, good job, well done." And then the one who had buried his talents, he said, "Yes, master, this is the talent you gave me. I didn't want anything to happen to it, so I buried it." He collected it and gave it to the person who had 10. You see, these parables, we just take them for granted, but we don't try to understand the actual meanings of these parables. They teach us so much, about, creation. So we have been given talents, and it is your duty to develop these abilities of the human spirit, the virtues. And one of these abilities that we have as a human spirit, sojourning through creation, is the freedom of choice. Some of us call it free will. So we have that freedom of choice. So no one compels us to develop these abilities. They're there, latent in us. But if you put them to use, they're to your benefit. So it's very, very important for us to know that. Now, just to throw a little more light on, and in fulfilling that duty towards the Creator, it also traverses man, your duty towards your fellow man. Now, if you understand where we have come from, our origin, then you see your fellow man as a fellow traveler. What's your duty towards him? That basic support that you give him, that basic consideration, that basic respect, that basic kindness that you show him. All these things, attributes of love, really, and that is your duty towards your fellow man, to uplift him, in whatever way you deem fit, And just a point that my fellow panelists mentioned about this two-way process in creation, I think it's very, very important to highlight that the right to receive in creation lies first of all in giving. And so giving, you must give something to expect anything from creation. So it's very, very important for us to understand that principle, of give and take. But we must give. The right to receive lies in giving. So we must support and love our neighbor as ourselves, and that's what Christ talked about. So that's the duty towards man. And again, that was mentioned before, that we must further creation. And what do we mean by further creation? We must have an ennobling influence on everything happening around us, in terms of that sense again of cultivating beauty, nature, beautifying our environment, trying to create what should be a paradise-like state here on earth. So you can now see, for instance, that we have gone wrong. Humanity has gone wrong, because yes, we have preserved that sense of duty. We've preserved that sense that yes, we need to perform our duties. But what we have done is remove the fundamental element of it that actually breathes life into it. We've removed the spirit. We've removed the spiritual element to fulfillment of that duty. So there's no life in it. And so we find that in certain situations, a lot of us are involved in jobs that we don't have any conviction about, or that we loathe in a way. And yet we're doing these things. We carry on, we go on, doing these jobs out of fulfillment of that need to fulfill our duties. But when you try to fulfill your duty, there has to be conviction. It has to be harmonized with the intuitive perception, or with the intuition, or with that inner voice. There has to be that belief. There has to be a love for the cause that you are fighting for, whatever it is that you're doing. And that is how it receives the blessing of creation. That is how it has furthering values for creation, you know. But like I said, the consequence of not fulfilling our duties is evident today in what is happening around us, where we just, you know, there's so much, you know, disharmony, there's so much, the wars and all the afflictions and everything happening is because we are not, you know, doing things the way they should be done. And the question that we should ask ourselves when we understand our origin as spiritual beings, you know, as creatures of creation, as fruits of creation, the question we must ask ourselves from time to time is, can a creature continue to defy the will of its maker? You know, how sustainable is that? It is not. You know, and so there's serious dire consequences for defying his will, for being negligent of our actual duty towards the Creator, towards our fellow beings, and towards nature. Serious dire consequences. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother William, so much for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual work in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And if you want to know more about the Grail message, you can go on to this website, and I know you can find other things as well, but this website we know you can find about the Grail message, or get a copy of the Grail message. And the website address is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic for discussion tonight is duty and loyalty, and we have talked a lot about duty, and I want to move on to loyalty in a moment. And please do join us with any questions or comments that you might have. Even if it is about duty, you can still talk about that. So the number to contact us is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. That's for UK. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Brother Femi, I want to go to you now, and as I said, I really do want to go into loyalty now. We're entering the second hour of our show, and I really want to look at the world that we live in today. You know, so far what we've discussed is very idealistic and, you know, spiritual values and all that, and it sounds really great. But on the earth, in the time we live today, things are not so, let's say, ideal. And the first thing I can keep thinking about is just like what Brother William mentioned, your job. You know, we have to work, we have to earn our bread, and you know, it's in a way the priority comes first about earning the money. Then you thinking about the consequences of the spiritual action, the actions we are doing, which have spiritual results. Also, they have the earthly results, of course. But it almost seems to survive is the first thing on the earth, and that means having a job. And I know let's say I'm meandering a little bit, but I just want to paint a picture, because obviously if it was ideal, you could work for yourself, you could do something yourself, you don't need to depend on others, and then you can do what you want. So let's say you become a farmer and you grow your own food, and you know, you don't need other people. You can sell your food obviously as well. But it doesn't work like that in the world of today. You need to, you need other things, and you can't do everything yourself. So there's like, which means you have to work with other people. And so this is my question. I'm going to start with assuming that all of us are like employees. So this is the question I'm going to ask. So in today's world, there's almost no job that is permanent. Either the employee leaves to seek a better career development opportunity, or the employer will make you redundant due to company's commercial situation, or they want to change the direction maybe. And in the past, you used to have jobs for life. You know, people just retired at the end of their career in one job, and that is just not there. And so, you know, it's like loyalty with consideration in the field of work is almost impossible now. So Brother Femi, the question is: Can we have loyalty in today's world in the field of work? Let's say like that. Let's ask like that. Is it possible that way, or is just it's just not possible? So that's to Brother Femi.
Yeah. So just to make sure that I understand the question, you said, can we have loyalty in today's workplace? Is it still possible? Am I right? Is that the question?
That's correct. That's right.
Okay. To be able to answer that question appropriately, I guess one needs to delve a bit more into what really is loyalty and how does loyalty arise. Of course, if we look at it from the word itself, loyalty demonstrates an action. Loyalty clearly implies that the person who is being loyal to something is performing an action towards that something. Similarly, duty also implies the same thing. If I have a duty to someone or to something, then again, I fulfill an action. I perform an action to deliver the duty. Now, the fundamental difference, I think, that must be understood is in the desire, in the driving force that lies behind the fulfillment of that activity. Is it something which I'm doing because I have to do it, even though I might not want to do it? Is it something which I'm doing because I want to do it and I'm totally committed and dedicated to doing it? Where do I really stand in relation to the fulfillment of that activity that I'm doing? And I think that is the primary differentiation between what I would describe as loyalty and duty. And so, can loyalty still exist in the workplace? The simple answer is, without a shadow of doubt, absolutely. One of my colleagues had already put the concept of the free will into the discourse that we've been having this evening. And so it is clear that for loyalty to come into the equation, the individual's exercise of their free will must certainly be evidenced. So I choose, not that I am forced to, but I choose that I want to do certain things. I want to achieve certain things for myself, for someone else, for my country. That verges on the concept of loyalty. Of course, these are not superficial thoughts. These are very deep considerations. Something which goes right to the core, which goes to the root of the individual's being. And so, again, if we look at most so-called startups in today's world, where someone or a group of people decide that they want to leave their current employment and to go and set up on their own, start up their own organization. Of course, the question has to be asked, what is the motive behind such a setup? Is it purely that, yes, I want to make money? Is it because I see that there is a desperate need by a group of people, and I feel that I can fulfill, I can provide a solution that fulfills the needs that these people have? What really drives me in setting about doing my daily activity? Same question can be asked about someone who happens to be a military officer or who happens to be a policeman. You know, you go to work. Are you going to work purely because that's what you do? Or is there a much deeper reason for that which you're attempting to deliver, which begins to verge on that which resonates with your being, and you're therefore being loyal to the cause? So one can go on, but there was a story that I read a while back, which I think probably also demonstrates this, clarifies in a simple way. A man was walking down the road and saw a group of people that were working on a construction site, and he asked one of them, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm laying bricks." And indeed, that was what he was doing. He was laying bricks because he's a bricklayer. He's doing his job. He asked another one who was doing exactly the same thing, "What are you doing?" And that one replies, "I'm building a cathedral." And so, for the man who sees what he's doing as building a cathedral, his whole approach to the work, to the delivery of the work, to how he actually interacts with those others that he's working with, will be totally different to the man who just says, "I'm doing my work, I'm laying bricks." And so, yes, in today's world, loyalty, the commitment to the cause that drives the individual in the fulfillment of whatever task they have to fulfill, is still very real. That said, it is very unfortunate that a significant number of the workforce today do their work as a duty because it puts the bread on the table, and so they go to work. It is, however, a pleasant experience to go through, where you see those who are genuinely committed to their work and fulfill their work diligently, not because they're trying to impress someone else, but because they are contributing actively to creation, which ultimately is what this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Femi. You very painted a big picture there, and yeah, that really sort of you can see whenever these questions are being asked, we must see that big picture. Otherwise, there's a danger of just getting lost in the mud of the ordinary, daily troubles, and not seeing that, not being aware of that big picture. So thank you for that. Now I want to ask my colleagues, is there anything they would like to share with the listeners from the Grail message about this topic tonight, about duty and loyalty? Has anybody got something they would like to share from their Grail message?
Well, not now. So maybe subsequently.
Okay.
Have something.
All right, that's fine. Okay, Brother Gregory, I'm going to go to you now. I know this might sound very superficial, and I know the Football World Cup is on at the moment, so but I think I just want to talk about this anyway. So let's say, Brother Greg, there's a football team and there's a manager, and the manager is loyal to particular players who have performed for him, for the team very well in the past, and he keeps faith in these players even when they drop their performance, and then the team starts to lose. So is it right to be loyal to these players who are not performing well? I know they did well in the past. Is it right for to continue to be loyal to them, that's my simple question. And I know I'm using a trivial example of a football team, but it could be applied in something else as well. So
well, it's a very pertinent question. It is, in the final analysis, is the goal what needs to be achieved. That is where the loyalty lies. And in the performance or in journeying through what's the task that needs to be performed, there are areas which may not seem palatable to one, but the goal must be borne in mind. In the case of the manager you just mentioned, that manager is supposed, as a prime duty, to have the goal in mind, the success which will bring lots of rewards. But in following such a path, the goal is not what he has in mind. So in everything that one intends to do, the high goal must come first. Then that personality must find out how in a tactical manner it will achieve that particular goal. What one means by this is the intuitive sensing of that goal must come first. Then, looking at the earthly possibilities, one will try to adjust oneself in order to fulfill that which needs to be done. If a manager or any personality follows that particular pattern, the likelihood is that it will turn out to be successful on the long run, because that goal is never lost. So that is the way one sees most of these things. However, one must add that in the fulfillment of duty, where loyalty comes in, one must know that not everything may turn out to be sweet at every part of the way. There may be areas where there are lots of challenges, but as long as the goal is in mind, then one will develop the strength to overcome these challenges, be it in marriage, be it in schools, be it in the workplace. One should not expect that because one has a lofty goal and therefore everything must become easy. Actually, it is the challenges which we find in the path which tends to strengthen us in order to find a solution to these challenges that lead us nearer to that lofty goal. But should we, along the path, give up, then we are not an inch closer to where we long for. So the challenges that accrue to us due to the high goal which has been set, those challenges should be seen as gifts. For if one does not polish the diamond, how can it then shine with the manifold colors? The same thing goes with the learning of a new language. That in the process of learning of this language, there will be challenges. Of course, there will be many times you mother the language in different ways. but at the same time, you are learning new things in that particular process, with the final goal that when you now understand how to speak this language, or put it more clearly, when you now understand the language that creation speaks to you, then you are in a position to adjust yourself. In fact, the process of adjusting yourself to the challenges already tells you that you are learning the language of adjustment. The process of being patient, the process of showing understanding to your neighbor, the process of valuing all that is placed before you, the process of valuing what has been granted to you, albeit what you see around creation and even your own physical body. These are the challenges that many may have to overcome to learn precisely what creation shows them and the path that they themselves need to follow. So one should not trivialize many of the challenges which come along, but one should learn from them.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. From what you're saying, I could maybe surmise it to say that the loyalty has to be to the goal rather than some individuals, because it's the overall goal that is what has to be achieved, and other people are working like clogs. They're just like parts of this is like a chain, and everybody's doing their little piece, in that chain to achieve that goal. So it's really the loyalty is to the goal rather than, oh, this person is not performing and so he should be, I don't know, either you can be just loyal and just because he's performing or not performing, but it's not about that. It's really the higher picture, which is having the loyalty to the goal. Would I be right to say that?
Yes, precisely what Brother Femi mentioned when he says one is building a castle, and as compared to one I'm just laying bricks. And so you have to see the higher picture and the challenges, and these are the welcome things that help one to build the character. And that's why one keep using the word, the language. Language is not rigid, it's fluid, and therefore one has to be fluid in learning this language. It's not static, as if there will be no changes. One should not expect to come to a piece of job and spend a whole lifetime on the same piece of job. There should be variations. There are seasons in creation. There are seasons in nature. The 4 seasons, and they change. And in these changes, one matures. One does not breathe in and refuse to breathe out and says, okay, I only wish to breathe in. So there are all sort of variations. One should learn from these variations. And in the learning of this variation, one matures. So there are many a time you go to a place and you find that the behavior there is not according to your expectation. One should also learn from that. So as one goes along, there are many things to be picked up along the way. One should not forget that even when Christ came here on earth, he did not find it easy. So first he had to understand what the challenges were before he brought his message. He didn't just jump from heaven. He had to grow up like every other person. He has to learn the language of his parents so that he can communicate with the parents. And yet, from his very high standpoint of view, he himself was the living love of the Almighty, but yet had to come here on earth to learn the language, to understand what the challenges were, and then provide a solution one should not forget this, that because one is going through challenges, one then gives up and leaves the high goal. But one should use these little challenges as building blocks in the molding of one's character. That is, the talents which have been granted us. These building blocks help to mold these talents in such a way that they will bring benefits to ourselves in the first place, to our fellow men who are joining along a similar path, and to creation in general.
Bless radio. Bless radio.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. Brother William, there's something I want to go into now. We are an individual, but we live, with other human beings in this world.
Yes.
So, when it concerns yourself or any person individually, yes, you can make decision and running your own life, for example, yes. But then, obviously, let's say you're a leader in the of a community or something. So, so my next question is based on that, really. So let's say you are a politician or leader, and it's a democratic country, and you have a particular policy that you want to advocate, and but the thing is, you are in a minority view of that policy or view, and but you want to implement it. You see, you want to implement that. Now, should you stay loyal to your policy, or be willing to compromise to find the middle way, and just to be having that policy implemented? Because we've talked about having conviction, and when somebody, as soon as you hear the word conviction, it means, oh no, that's I believe this, and nothing but this I only will do. Anything outside of that conviction, I cannot do it, because it's almost like I'm killing myself if I do that. So, as we know, in democracy, there are leaders, politicians. They have, let's say, you have a particular thing you want to implement, and then you have to agree it with the people around you. Otherwise it's not going to happen. And then when you do that, it always most of the time it gets diluted. So, almost I'm saying you have to give up your conviction if you want to have anything to do with that policy to be implemented. So should we? How should we be? Should we compromise? I use that word. I can't think of another word, really. Should we compromise that? In a way, compromising our conviction, or you just stand by it, and then in the end, nothing will happen. So I just ask you that to Brother William, please.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. But what I would just like to do before I go on to answer this question, and if I don't answer this question in the process of my explanation here, or my digression, please kindly bring me back to this question, because it's an important one. But I think for the benefit of also the discussion we're having, I think let us also try and be very clear about the concept of loyalty, you see, because if we don't have the conception right, then it's quite easy to misconstrue or distort things or misunderstand things, So when we talk about loyalty, right, it's very, very important to understand what loyalty actually means. Now, loyalty is a quality of love. In other words, you cannot separate love from loyalty. Neither can you separate purity from loyalty. Neither can you separate justice from loyalty. So loyalty is a quality of love. Now, the question now has to be, do we have a true conception of what love means? Because our earthly conception of love is quite covetous. It's quite possessive and other thing and otherwise. But true love, true love and what it means to truly love something, to love a cause, what true love really means. It's very, very important for us to understand that, that selfless giving, selfless service, service. And first of all, first and foremost, very, very importantly to understand, that God is love. God is love. He is the epitome of love, and then his son who was incarnated as the love of the Almighty incarnate in Christ, So are we trying to imbibe these loving principles? What does it mean from a human point of view to start to live according to the sense of what love means? How do we break it down for us here on earth? What are these attributes of love? Qualities of love. Loyalty is part of it. Faithfulness is part of it. In fact, a lot of the virtues have issued from love.
You're listening to
so you can't separate them. So true loyalty, when you're talking about fulfillment of duty, when you're fulfilling your duty out of love for that cause, out of conviction for that cause, that is what gives it that life. That is what gives it that furthering value. And I'll give a typical an example that was given in the Grail message, which is very, very important, and just to paint the right picture here. So you have, for instance, I'm a member of the military, and then I'm sent to fight a war, okay, because it's my duty as a soldier to fight a war. Now the question I have to ask myself as a soldier is, what is this war about? Do I believe in the cause for this war? Do I believe, is it just serving the leader's interest? Do I agree with it? Does it resonate with me? Does my intuition, my inner guidance, my intuition, that voice of the spirit, does it agree with this war and what this war is about? Because if it doesn't, and then I don't even have a love for the cause, for that fight, if I now perform a duty as a soldier, and whatever actions that whatever happens as a consequence of my actions, so if I kill someone in that process, then you've actually committed a serious crime in creation. You have actually murdered someone because, one, you have done something against your conviction, but yet you're trying to fulfill your duty. And then you don't even have any love for the cause, for the war that you're fighting. And that's what basically makes you a mercenary. A good example for these mercenaries that used to fight, the Landsquinets, you see. So it is very important that we do not separate these things, duty and loyalty. Loyalty, performing that duty out of love, that is what infuses it with life. Okay? So if you come to, for instance, thinking about what true love is. So you mentioned the example of the coach, for instance. You mentioned the example of the coach and football. Now the question for me is, you see, true love, just to throw a little more light about love. True love, the better part of true love is severity. And it can actually seem harsh sometimes, because true love basically is only interested in what benefits the individual, and not what is necessarily pleasing to him. So to be loyal to that player, if he's performing badly, and not performing his duty correctly, out of love for him, I could actually drop him. Because dropping him means that he realizes that his performance is below par. And what happens, he would work harder, to increase his level of performance, so that he fulfills his role or his duty towards the team. So that's one way to look at it. Then you've talked about the politics, and I have to say that is a problem perhaps with politics, because when you talk about democracy, for instance, democracy says that the majority wins. But we know that in most cases, historically, the majority seem to be on the wrong side of history most times, So democracy does not necessarily mean that is right. So the majority does not necessarily mean it's right. And that's something that we must understand or appreciate about democracy and the way it is. So the question has to be, that when we're talking about fulfillment of duty, when we're talking about loyalty, there has to be a spiritual purpose to it. And if we remove it, if we remove that spirituality from it, and we remove that loyalty, true love for the cause or whatever we're fighting for from it, then there's no life in it. And whatever the outcome that you get from any decision you make cannot have lasting values because it's not infused with spirit. So I'll give you a classical example. I mean, 2,000 years ago, the majority were saying, crucify him, Hosanna, and yet the same people a few days before that were hailing him as the Messiah. Okay. But the same people, the same majority were saying, crucify him, Now, was that the right action? No, it was wrong. And I can give you, so many more examples, So we must always understand that whatever it is that when we decide to perform our duties, it's important that our duty is infused with spirit, that it is in accordance with, it resonates with our intuition. And then, whatever job we're doing, we're loyal to that job if it's done out of love for it. And if you see that, and it's supposed to be a joyful activity, then when you're doing something out of that dedication, out of that conviction, out of love for it, then what manifests from that can only be beauty. But when you are doing something that is not in accord with your intuition, there are also consequences of doing that. Because you see, we also have to understand that if we look at things from a three-dimensional point of view, think about body, think about mind, think about the spirit being the core, the true ego. Now, we have thoughts and we generate thoughts. Now, if we generate thoughts, and I'm sure some people have heard that thoughts are things. So if we generate thoughts that are not in accordance with our intuition, it creates forms that are ugly. And these forms take on a life of their own, and these same forms are the reasons why, it causes a lot of disharmony, even in the workplace. So you're working, you're not happy with your boss, but you feel you're performing your duty. Yes, fine. But we don't even know the source of the problems. Meanwhile, there are disturbances that are happening, in the deeper dimensions, that are causing disturbances in the thought process, and people are just wondering, where's the source of all this? So there is even a consequence of doing stuff that is against that conviction, against that will. It creates forms that are distorted and cause problems everywhere, and continue to lead to all the disharmony, and the distrust and a lot of other things that are happening in the world today. So I think that is how I want to look at it. It's very important to get the conceptions correctly. When you get the conceptions correctly, then you're able to build from there. And mind you, like I said initially when I started, you see that when the problem is fundamentally the fact that man has removed a very important element to duty and loyalty, you've removed the life from it. We've retained, yes, these concepts, but they are distorted. And as long as they are distorted, whatever is manifests out of these distortions can only be transient and not lasting, and eventually they would have to run themselves to sand. So let me just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother William, for that. Okay, I'm going to go to Brother Femi now. This is quite a, let's say, deep question as well. I'm just going to say it to you. Loyalty to your faith, you know. Most of the people, whichever faith they follow, there are things in their faith they don't quite agree with, but they stick with their faith, so my question is this: can you truly be loyal to your faith when you don't fully agree with everything in that faith? Can you, is that possible? Loyalty to the faith. So is that possible when there are things that you don't fully agree, or even you're not sure? It's not like you completely disagree. Sometimes there are things you're not sure about. It's something, most of the faith we are taught things. This is how it's supposed to be. This is right. This is wrong. God says don't do this. It's like that, and then you take it on. Maybe 80% you agree already, because it's your heart is with that. The other 20% you're not sure. So, Brother Femi, what can you help us with that, please? Can you be loyal to your faith?
I think it's important to again differentiate loyalty from conviction, because when we talk about issues of faith, which is a very personal thing, indeed, before faith can actually arise at all, there has to be conviction. Conviction is a living thing. It is not static. Just like the concept of perfection and development are related, where the fact that something is perfect still allows for it to continue to develop. In the same way, faith in a religion or in a spiritual recognition is something which continues to deepen, something which the holder hopefully continues to gain a lot more clarity, and therefore his or her conviction continues to grow. Now, that said, it is the duty of each individual to weigh and examine whatever it is they choose to hold as the basis of their belief system, of their conviction and their faith. And therefore, if one is not in sync with that which is meant to be a key basis of the individual's person, then there is a fundamental problem there. Loyalty, as we've been discussing earlier on, is a higher level of awareness and synchronization between the individual and that which they aspire to fulfill, that activity which they are working on. Faith, on the other hand, is not a duty as such. It is not something that you have to choose to fulfill. But faith is something which arises as a result of your own personal recognitions and convictions. And so it's important that we're clear about that. And so when we talk about religion, of course, for a vast majority of us, we were born into a particular religion. We hold on to that religion through the course of our life, and we even though there may be occasions where there are real doubts in our minds, for whatever reason, we tend not to explore, not to delve deeper into those challenges with that particular religion that we have. We do ourselves a big disservice in the process. It is the duty and the responsibility of every human being not only to understand what they are here for and how they are expected to be, but that which we choose to hold on to as a cornerstone, as a pillar of our life, we must have total synchronity, total understanding of what it is and why we hold on to that thing. And so, in a nutshell, can you have a religion which you are loyal to, even though you do not necessarily understand, or you cannot bring yourself to align with the teachings, albeit some aspects of the teaching? The simple answer is no. But like I said, it's important that we differentiate conviction in that which we hold as the basis of our existence or of our life, versus loyalty, which is the fulfillment of a duty out of love for the cause that we have embarked upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Femi, for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio, the spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual work in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic for discussion tonight is duty and loyalty. You can join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 07944 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're contacting us from outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Brother Gregory, I just want to ask you, you did mention there was something from the Grail message you could read for us, for the listeners. So would you be able to do that now? Brother Gregory?
He's probably on mute.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I just realized it now.
Okay, yes, thank you.
The extract is from the lecture, The Language of the Lord. I'm going to stress some things here. It is the sacred duty of the human spirit to investigate why it is living on earth, or in general in this creation, in which it is suspended as if by 1,000 threads. No man considers himself so insignificant as to imagine that his existence is without purpose, unless he makes it purposeless. In any case, he deems himself too important, and yet there are only a few men on earth capable of laboriously detaching themselves from their spiritual indolence so far as seriously to consider themselves with the investigation of their task on earth. Again, it's solely indolence of the spirit which makes them willing to accept the firmly established doctrines of others. And it is indolence that lies in the reassurance that comes from thinking that it is great to adhere to the faith of their parents without submitting its underlying principles to keen, careful, and independent of examination. In all these matters, men are now eagerly supported by calculating and selfish organizations, which believe that the best way to extend and safeguard their influence and thus to increase their power is by adding to the number of its adherents. They are far from the true recognition of God, for otherwise they would not bind the human spirit with the fetters of a firmly established doctrine, but would have to educate it for the personal responsibility ordained by God, which fundamentally stipulates full freedom of spiritual decision. Only a spirit free in this respect can come to the true recognition of God that matures within him to the complete conviction which is essential for anyone who wishes to be uplifted to luminous heights. For only free, sincere conviction can help him to achieve this. Thanks. I read this out just to show that man has duties, and that primary duty is to understand, to learn this language which creation speaks to him, and that creation itself is not empty. Creation has its constituents. The constituents of creation are basically, first and foremost, what we see, the human spirits themselves. There are other things that nature also shows. There are others which we cannot even perceive with our physical eyes. We have a duty to understand the radiations that streams through all this that we see and we do not see. We have the duty to understand this and articulate it so that we can make it useful first to ourselves and then to those around us. Those around us does not necessarily mean your immediate family. It means those who you swing in harmony, those who are also striving to learn this language which we are learning, such that there will be harmony amongst us. For if we have a set of human spirits striving very hard to learn a language, of course there will be errors, but that does not mean they give up on their strivings. That goal is to understand the laws or to understand the language which creation speaks to it, such that it will know how to fit in within the scheme of things. Else, if on the long run the human spirit does not strive to understand this language, it will be ignored and could be crushed by the signals and by the radiations, which radiations were meant to uplift it, but because of a lack of understanding, falls short of that which is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Gregory, for that. I'm going to go to Brother William now. When another aspect of loyalty we think about is in marriage, and people think that loyalty can be looked at as faithfulness. So, Brother William, would you say that another word for loyalty is faithfulness? And then maybe you could also tell us, with regard to marriage, is that what that means? Or can you just go deeper into what that means?
Yes. Hello.
Yes. There's just a little bit of background sound. Okay, it's gone now. It's gone now. You can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about. It's just I'm outdoors at the moment, so it's a bit windy. But just to say that to get your question again, that you were asking about marriage and talking about loyalty and faithfulness.
That's right. So another word for loyalty could be faithfulness, and then and of course when you think of faithfulness you think of marriage in a way, in that way. And so could you just maybe go into the spiritual aspect of that as well? So because when people take it a bit more literally, but obviously we want to go on a spiritual understanding here. So
and that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that question. Now, again, it just further to my earlier comments, about loyalty, about these virtues, faithfulness. Yes, first, faithfulness, they're all attributes of love, and faithfulness is one of those ways in which we start to manifest loyalty, and one of the ways in which we manifest love. And in fact, some of these virtues, as we know them, what we would find is that some of them are easily more achievable through females or through male activity. So faithfulness, for instance, is something that the human womanhood has the ability to really elevate to the highest of heights, as into a very high level, faithfulness, you see, and that's, the woman who is faithful to her cause. And then, of course, a man trying to live according to that sense. Yes, it is a form of loyalty, and of course, faithful to her spouse in that sense. It's an attribute of love. Faithfulness to whatever it is you're fighting for, or whatever it is that your country, for instance, whatever it is. But you cannot separate it from true love. So these are some of the qualities of love, and a woman is even able to take it to a very high level, when we talk about true faithfulness as a virtue.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know we're coming to the end of our show, and the next presenter is still on his way, but I think we'd like to finish our show, unless anybody would like to carry on a little bit longer. But I want to just say it's not going to be, he's coming basically at 8:30, so just so you know that. So I just wanted to know if you want to go a little bit longer to my colleagues, or you think we should just finish on time. You think?
Well, there are some who may wish to continue.
Yes, yes. So I'll leave it to everybody. I'm actually happy to stay on, and anybody else who wishes to stay on, please do stay on. And anybody who wishes to leave, just say, we can say goodbye to whoever wants. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah. Sorry. I'd like to excuse myself.
Okay.
But it's just to thank everyone, viewers, fellow panelists. I think it's been a very healthy exchange. I think it's been a very important topic that we've discussed today. And so it's, again, something I say quite often, that we cannot go to town or do justice to a lot of these discussions that we're having. They're essentially to create awareness of this piece of work, that in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrusheen, that throws light on all these aspects of human endeavor, such that there's no room for mysticism. Creation is clear, like the fellow panelists talked about, the language of the Lord. And what is the language of the Lord? The language of the Lord is creation. And that is, we are part of that creation. And so it is a duty for us to understand how creation works, to understand how we fit into creation. And this is knowledge that no ordinary human being like you and I could fathom. So I encourage people to examine this work objectively and see whether it resonates with them. But thank you very much for your time, and I also thank the other panelists for their very, very very rich and very important and meaningful contributions to the show today. So I'll sign out now, and I'm looking forward to the next show, perhaps next week, Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother William. Yeah, the next week's topic is the secret of gravity. So that will be next week's topic. So dear listeners, it is now 8 o'clock. We are going to carry on. Brother Sayom is on his way. He's told me that he's expecting to be here by 7:30. So we'll just carry on, and we may continue till he arrives, or we may just end as we'll see how it goes, basically.
Brother Sard, I think I'm signing off also.
Oh, you're signing off as well. Okay, then. All right, so it's going to be myself and Brother Femi. So yes, Brother Gregory, would you like to say anything to the listeners?
I just wish them well and the strength to examine the work.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. So, and Brother Femi, are you okay to continue?
I think it actually makes more sense to wrap up now.
Okay.
So that the radio station can prepare for the next show. However, I'm happy to stay on for maybe another 10 minutes or so.
All right. Let's. Okay. I'm happy as well. So let's continue that. So thank you, Brother Gregory. We'll see you next week. And yeah, thank you for that. So dear listeners, just to remind you, Brother Sayom is on his way. He should be here 7:30. And we're going to carry on a little bit longer for the 10 minutes now. So Brother Femi, we've talked about human beings and loyalty in human beings, duty and loyalty in human beings. But obviously, we don't live alone on this earth. There's also animals, and I know they're not the same as humans, but they do show certain, qualities. And you could always say, when you have, let's say, we have pets, dogs or cats, they always show loyalty, And I wanted to ask, and even when they have their own, if I can use the word children, they have to look after their offspring, let's say, and they show quite an affection and closeness with their offspring. So I want to ask you, Brother Femi, some people have noticed that or observed that animals look after their own offspring in a more let's say stronger way than a human being can do. So does that mean they have more loyalty to their children, to their offspring? Or is there something different because they're animals? Could you help us with that?
Yes. So to summarize,
Blessed
why
Radio,
does it appear
time
as
is
if
8 o'clock p.m.
an animal is more connected to its offspring than we human beings? This is actually a very involved question that will require the listener to have some insight into the difference between the origin of an animal and that of a spirit, a human being. But to keep it simple, whilst we human beings have our free will, animals operate on the basis of instinct. And so an animal does not rationalize like a human being to decide or to choose that it wants to do this or that. The animal relies on its instincts, and the instinct propels it to do that which it does. In the animal kingdom, the highest instinct that an animal can demonstrate is the perpetuation of life of existence. And so for animals, they would do anything to sustain the life of their offspring. That is so to speak the highest goal that an animal could strive for, or could, well, I don't want to use the word strive for, because that implies that the animal is making a choice, which is not the case. But that which is embedded within it as part of its innate instinct is the need for continuity of life, and that automatically translates to the protection of its young ones. Whereas for we human beings, of course, a human being, a parent, generally speaking, will do that which it needs to do to protect its young, or its bud.
You're listening to Bless.
The goal of the spirit is actually higher than just the nurturing of its offsprings. The goal of the spirit is the recognition of God, the ultimate recognition of God the Father, which is much higher than focus on children, or focus on young ones. So I hope that answer helps with clarifying some of these differences. But ultimately, each individual will need to deliberate on these themes that we're discussing about, should not spare any effort in trying to grasp these principles in a more comprehensive manner, and an examination of the Grail message will help tremendously in that process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Femi. I'm going to call it a day or night for tonight now. So, Brother Femi, do you want to say anything to the listeners at all? I think you've sort of said, you told them in a way, but go on. If you want anything further, you want to say.
Yes, just to wish everybody a pleasant week. Hopefully the listeners are enjoying the warm weather that we have, and we'll make the most of it before the weather changes again. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Brother Femi. So yes, listeners, we will be back next Tuesday as usual, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. the spiritual discussion program. The topic for next week is the secret of gravity. So please do join us then. Just as everybody else, my colleagues have said, we really encourage you to pick up the Grail message, examine it for yourself. We know how much help it can give you in answering questions of your life, and just giving clarity that you could not dream that there could be such answers there. So I know that's what we say, but the only way for you to know that is to find it, look at it yourself. But we want to share it with you. So really, we encourage you to do that. So all the best. Have a great week, and I wish everybody God bless. Take care, everyone.
This is called the cancer bush.
Oh, I've heard of this. The cancer bush.
It is from nature that diseases arise, and from nature comes the cure. Dr. Paracelsus. Cancer bush, the hidden herb that supports and treats cancer patients, is brought to you by Mother Nature's traditional herbal remedies. Cancer bush is the miracle herb and can also treat these following conditions: cancer, chronic fatigue, depression, diabetes type 2, piles, hot flushes, gonorrhea, syphilis, hemorrhoids, chlamydia, rheumatoid arthritis, tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS, mental stress, lupus influenza, swine flu, and more. To find out more, and if you or a loved one are suffering from the following conditions, please head over to our website on www.cancerbush.org.uk. If you'd like to email us, please email at info@cancerbush.org.uk. You can also call us on 0208 993 4870. That's 0208 993 4870, or 07943 144 544. That's 07943 144 544. Cancer Bush, the miracle herb.
Dear listeners, it's Brother Sard here. Brother Sayom, our next presenter, is on his way. Be expecting him to be here for 8:30. So apologies for not starting him being here at 8 o'clock for his show, but he's on his way and he should be here 8:30. So in the meantime, we're going to keep playing some ads and some music and so on. So he'll be joining at 8:30. Please stay on the show, on the station. Thank you.
Power is the ability to define someone's reality and have that person accept that definition as if it were their own.
Everything was stripped from us. That's why we're so ignorant today and so baffled and ridiculous and keep going in the same circle.
From executive producer, who has appeared on The Tonight Show, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and various MTV and VH1 programs.
You're listening to Bless,
Our history, for some reason, it becomes offensive to people. So we have to stop being afraid to tell what our true history is.
Best-selling author Tariq Nasheed is determined to uncover the real truth about untold history.
It's necessary to destroy a man's mind in order to maintain control of him. If a man knows who he is and continues that into his legacy, to his children, then you have problems controlling that man.
Interviewing leading scholars and historians, discussing topics omitted from modern history.
Only a people who haven't learned how to respect